We'll get started. I'd like to call to order the October 1, 2013 meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, and I'd ask you to join me with Pledge of Allegiance as we start.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join me in prayer. God, thank you for the opportunity to serve the residents of Buncombe County. Give us wisdom, insight, and compassion to make good decisions that improve our county and increase everyone's chance to get a good education, find a meaningful job, live in a reasonable standard of living, and retire to enjoy life after work. Look after and touch the hearts and minds of our leaders in Washington, D.C. Help them to put our nation's interest above any other personal or political agenda that might otherwise impair judgment or change opinions about how to move our country ahead. And I know they all want to do that in their own way. Bless our children, schools, teachers, and administrative tasks in their important work in educating our students to be good men and women with a strong sense of civic and community responsibility. Help the recovery of the Colorado flooded areas, the burned out western states, communities that have suffered tragedies by misuse of guns, and help our brothers and sisters in pain all over the world to recover and get back to normal life. And thank you for this group of men and women seated at this commission, and thank you for each one of them and the blessings they give us and insights and good ideas about how to best serve Buncombe County. Amen.
Amen.
In accordance with our Code of Ethics, it's the duty of every commissioner to avoid both actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Does any board member know of any potential conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before us today? If not, we'll proceed. Our first order of business will be public comment. Public comment is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you can leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of our board and pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment should address the entire board. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the commission are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and to be respectful of everyone in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting. And the commission reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to our board. Is there any public comment tonight? Yes, sir, Mr. Yelton.
Don Yeltsin. And I made it, David. Had some people say they missed me. Well, I ain't missed you because I've been sitting home watching you. And I'm going to tell you, you finally got your lights right. Still need to work on the microphone, though, because some of you, when you talk, you're away from the mic, and I can't hear you, and it's kind of little bit bad out here because we're like, 60 feet away from you. So you need to work on that a little bit, Wanda. Maybe you can get that done in a year's time. But what I wanted to say was that we had an election, and we changed parts of the board because we had district elections. And I was looking for some common sense to approach into the board, and I was not looking for a bunch of people hugging each other and kissing each other. But what I see is a bunch of people hugging and kissing each other, because I would like to see some discussion by this board on issues here in public in these chambers. And to give you a perfect example, your last commissioners meeting, a couple of you sung the praises of the planning staff for redoing the planning board and redoing the planning and saying, okay, we're going to look more at community, and you all just praised them like everything. Well, I think that's their job, isn't it? And that's what they should have been doing. But I did not hear one member of this board, not one member, point out that before we did land use planning, we had community planning, and we had diversity, and we had mixed use. And I never will forget a meeting we had here in Asheville where Langland Adams said, we used to have a business with the people upstairs that live up there, and they had their business downstairs. Once we got zoning, we did away with that. Now that we're going back to it, we're going back to the very same things that we had. And not a one of you pointed that out. That disturbs me, because that's what I elected 3 of you for. But your leader's done a great job of leading you all around just like a little pig with a ring in its nose. Get rid of the ring in your nose.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other public comment tonight? Yes, sir. Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Good to see you again. Saw you for 2 hours. That wasn't enough. I had to come back. My point today is on the independent authority. We were sold on the independent authority on the CRA, the Culture and Recreation Authority. We got a bill passed and nobody owns up to who asked for it. But I remember years ago when, Mr. Chairman, you wanted a big tax in the county, and you wanted that 7 cents that the Inca district done away with. You wanted it back. Now you got it. Now, the bond referendums. How many of you as older people and younger people too remember when you had bond referendums? You asked the public whether they wanted it or not. They done away with it. Legislation. Then they come up with COP, Certificate of Participation Bonds. Then the public got further away. They never got to participate. Now you've got the legislator dictating to you the CRA in a form of another legislation for you to tax the people again, and you say, well, it's just within my budget. Well, no, I'm sorry. You're lying to the public. It's not just within the budget. This monster is going to grow. This tax is going to grow. You're taxing the people without representation, and you're doing it through the legislators of the Republican Party and the Democrats. I don't see nothing but one person when I look up there at the board, and that's just one bunch of people that are Democrats and Republicans, and they call themselves parties. I just call you the party poopers. Because I don't see how that the Culture Recreation Authority, you can be the CEO, the COO, and the CFO, and call it an independent authority. It just don't make sense. My concern is bigger than that. When this thing is formed, 3 commissioners on this board and the other folks you're appointing is going to be little puppets on a string. That's all you're going to have. You're going to run the show. And then you call it an independent authority. I've been around here too long for a bunch of people to be scratched with a bunch of kittens. Because I'll tell you, this tax, there's no telling where the end is going to come. We already got a tax that nobody else has had in the state of North Carolina, building all these schools. And then when we got them built, we thought we'd get that off of our back. No, it never sunset. It's still setting over there. Yeah, it sunset. We still got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment tonight? All righty then. Old business. We, at our last meeting, we designated Mr. Chip Craig and Mr. John McKibben to be our representatives on the TDA. Wait a minute, I think I got this out of order. Let me try again. Yep, I sure did. It's my mistake, excuse me. Is there a motion to follow the agenda as we have discussed, with the exception of a continuance of the Teresa Beeman rezoning request? There's been a motion by Vice Chair Jones, a second by Commissioner Frost. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will follow the agenda, and we have adopted the consent agenda items. First order of public hearing will be Denise Brain talking about the Rural Operating Assistance Program. Denise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is the first opportunity that planners associated with mountain mobility have had the opportunity to come before you and bring some items to you for review and approval, and we appreciate this opportunity. This is the beginning, sort of the beginning of our annual grant and planning update process. So we'll be bringing this to you today, and we'll probably have some other items for your attention in the coming meetings as well. As you know, Buncombe County contracts out the administration and operations of mountain mobility, its community transportation system. Operations are provided through a contract with McDonald Transit Associates, and administration is provided under contract with the Land of Sky Regional Council. The Land of Sky Regional Council provides such things as our eligibility and intake for mountain mobility, but they also provide planning assistance and grant preparation assistance for us in the many plans and grants that we apply for throughout the year, as well as the reporting processes and other things associated with those grants. Today's agenda item relates to Buncombe County's annual grant to DOT for funding under the Rural Operating Assistance Program, or otherwise known as ROAP. ROAP provides operating assistance to mountain mobility. It's one of our primary, it's actually the only state-funded operating assistance grant that Buncombe County receives for mountain mobility, and that most community transportation systems receive across the state. Hope Bleeker with Land of Sky is here today to discuss with you the grant preparation as well as the process and recommendations for today's grant, followed by the public hearing and hopefully your approval by resolution. Thank you. Hope.
Thank you, Denise. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's a great pleasure to be here today to present the ROAP program. As Denise said, ROAP funds come directly from the state and are apportioned to the counties for use in public transit systems, particularly in the areas of disabled and elderly populations, as well as rural general public populations, and also they are also to be used for employment purposes as well. Buncombe County's total allocation this year is $348,881. $141,304 is being used for elderly and disabled transportation. And just a quick note on that, Land of Sky was very pleased this year to work alongside Denise in order to issue a call for projects to over 35 agencies in our area. They were solicited to determine their needs for transportation services. And we're pleased to award sub-allocations and to work also in partnership with the following agencies this year. A list has been submitted in your packet, but I'll read through them just very quickly. The ARC of Buncombe County, AB Tech, Asheville Parks and Recreation, Care Partners Adult Day Center, ELIDA, Home, Irene Wortham, Jewish Family Services of Western North Carolina, Land of Sky Regional Council for the Senior Companion and Foster Grandparents programs, Open Hearts Arts Center, and the North Carolina Division of Services for the Blind, as well as RHA Health Services. Some of the agencies on the list are newer agencies. However, they voiced an interest in contracting with Mountain Mobility, and so these funds would be used for clients who would be eligible under the ROPE program. An additional $45,610 will be used to fund employment trips on Mountain Mobility, both through the van services as well as the Trailblazer. And finally, an additional $161,987 will be used to fund the RGP program, also the Trailblazer buses, as well as some demand response van services for Buncombe County citizens. This afternoon, we're requesting that the commissioners hold a public hearing on this year's fiscal FY14 ROPE grant application, and also pending results of that you please approve the authorizing resolution to submit the application to the state in the amount of $348,881. Be happy to answer any questions about the application.
Any questions?
Yes. Can you explain a little bit about you mentioned there's some new agencies coming in. What is, explain the relationship of those agencies to?
Yes, sir. We have a number of agencies who typically run day treatment programs, for example, in Buncombe County, and Mountain Mobility is part of their core business. So in other words, we have contracts with these agencies, and when we contract with agencies, we'll examine the eligibility of each client under these particular sets of grant funds, and also what happens is that there becomes then a subscription list of routine things that happen where a client, for example, who is going to Irene Wortham or Care Partners will need services daily, and that will be an automatic subscription type of service that will run for the client, and then we will examine the trip used by the agency, and we will bill the agency accordingly and manage the grant funds as well. The county, Denise works alongside of us in that process to ensure that all of that accounting is correct. But that's sort of the 30,000-foot overview of it. Some of the agencies also are not necessarily using the funds for the Mountain Mobility services. The EdTap program allows for also mileage reimbursement under volunteer services, for example. So, for example, the Council on Aging's program, Call a Ride, is part of the EdTap program this year, and that's a program where volunteers come and drive elderly and persons around if they need assistance or if they can't drive directly. We always look at the highest and best use of the funds and work very closely with the agencies, but that's the meaning of that term suballocation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we start our public hearing? Not, thank you. I'll convene the public hearing. I have 451. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on this application that we've been asked to make? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you well know, I certainly have advocated for special needs population as well as adults. And one thing that I have seen with these applications, I brought it to the attention of the board, whether you was on here last time that you heard me speak anyway on this. I asked for everything under this act to be brought under the umbrella and brought to the county commissioners and tell how it was done. And you know what happened? At the next commissioner meeting, it didn't happen. you had a proposal for the administration part of it to be pulled out. So in my mind, the little wheel goes to running. What happened when I asked the question, well, let's have an accountability of this program as a whole? That's my question that I ask. And the next time I come to the meeting, the administration was pulled. Now, I'm getting to a point, and that point is, on this grant money, it's good to hear the money and the dollars. I think when they come to talk about this, you need to ask the question, what is the people getting out of this? Are they being served? Where they're being served? How many is being served? Who isn't being served? Ask some really good questions. Dollars don't mean nothing unless you tie it to something that the human being is getting out of it. So my question is, tell me what the meat and potatoes are. Give me some evidence that you're doing something with my money. And the other big question is, Obamacare has come in. The federal dollars on October 1 has come in. Now, under the federal part, and we're going into what we call the Smoky Mountain mental health, okay, these people are using these services as well that she mentioned. My question is the federal dollars, she's talking about state dollars, but is the federal dollars affected any way that we need to be looking at in regard to this program as well? Because under this MCO that we're talking about, there are going to be some changes made. So I don't know if it's affecting this program or not, but it needs to be asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment tonight? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed at 4:55. Ladies, do y'all want to comment on do you know the impact? I know it was kind of no notice about this, but if you have any comments about Mr. Rice's questions about the impact of Obamacare and anything meat and potatoes you can give us about numbers, and if not, we can post that later. But if you know these things and have them handy, that'd be appropriate.
I think there were about 3 or 4 different things mixed in Mr. Rice's comments, so I'm not sure I followed all of them, but we'll certainly be glad to address any questions or concerns that Mr. Rice or any member of the board should have about the operations or administration of Mountain Mobility. I think what he may be referring to was how the original contracting situation came about, and both contracts for the administration and operations of Mountain Mobility were awarded in July of 2011 and were under full review by the board and county management as well. But again, should there be any questions or concerns that we can answer, we'll be happy to do that. As far as the accountability of the program, we certainly file monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual reports with the state of North Carolina concerning the use of these funds. We recently just filed the report for FY 2013. Although I can't remember the exact numbers, we could certainly supply that report to you, but to the best of my recollection, I believe this operating assistance program provided close to about 90,000 trips for employment, for elderly, disabled transportation, and for general public transportation. Those 90,000 trips would not have occurred without this money, and it's certainly beneficial to those who are those passengers and patrons of Mountain Mobility who benefit from the services that we provide. I think you could ask anyone who depends on Mountain Mobility for transportation, and many of them don't know how their trips are paid for. Many of them think they're free, and that's okay, because as long as we can get these types of grant funds to help pay for those trips, then that lessens the financial burden on those individuals as well. With respect to Obamacare, we don't know all of the immediate or long-term impacts of that. We expect that there may be some contractual amendments that may be needed for our operations contract because it does affect more than 20 of 25 employees and those kind of things. We've done some preliminary discussions with the contractor, the operations contractor on that item, and we'll be finalizing those probably sometime over the next 6 months. I don't expect it to have a significant financial impact, and we have planned for that in our FY14 and FY15. We will plan it in our FY15 budget should it not occur this year. But again, those are things that we'll be discussing over the coming months. We're going to be looking at an option to renew our contracts for FY15 forward, so there may be this and other issues that come about as a part of those, but we really won't know until we get into those discussions. But again, I just encourage you to give us a call if you have any questions. Should you desire any more specific detailed report, that's certainly available through the county planning office, through the county finance department, or county manager's office, either one, should you desire more.
And Denise, just for the record, who's eligible for mountain mobility, and what do people have to show, and how do they connect with mountain mobility here?
Many people are eligible for mountain mobility. The majority of services are geared toward elderly and disabled people who are either 60 years of age and older, or who, by reason of their disability, maybe aren't able to ride the ART bus system, or that just need transportation because they are unable to drive, or they don't have personal resources or family members to get them around. The ages of those disabled individuals may vary from very young, even babies perhaps, if they're certified, for example, under Medicaid, I should say. We work with DSS on their Medicaid transportation, so we may be transporting an infant to the doctor. We may be transporting a 99-year-old individual to the doctor as well. So it kind of depends on where you live, how old you are, what your disability is, and if all else fails, we do have some operating funds, as we said in this discussion, for general public transportation, which means that you may be able to get to jobs or other kinds of activities that you need to be able to carry out your activities of daily living and access community services. So we encourage anyone to call that may need service, 250-6750, and we'll certainly be glad to go through that process with anyone and determine if there are services available.
Great.
Just
go ahead. Yes,
a
sir.
couple questions. Denise, I'm very familiar with mountain mobility, and when I was commissioner, after about a month, someone had called with a problem with mountain mobility, and they I made a call, and they jumped all over and took care of it for them. But I'm not as familiar with the EdTap. So could you give us a short commercial on EdTap as to what it is? And also, could you explain, is it it looks like that there are people within some of these organizations that are reimbursed for mileage to actually be going and picking up people and doing some of these things, and is that does that work very well? Is that something should be looked at and expanded on, or do you know very much about that?
Okay. First of all, with respect to the EdTap program, EdTap means Elderly and Disabled Transportation Assistance Program, and let me apologize, there are more acronyms in transportation than there is in alphabet soup, but at any rate, EdTap is one of the 3 programs that are under the umbrella of the Rural Operating Assistance Program that you're approving today. You have the Elderly and Disabled Transportation Assistance Program, or EdTap. You have the Employment Transportation Program, which is for employment, and then you have the Rural General Public Transportation Program, which is for general public transportation outside of the city of Asheville, basically. So the Elderly and Disabled Transportation Assistance Program, again, that's one of the programs that have actually been around since 1989. It's a state-funded pot of money, and it primarily is used by agencies and is allocated to agencies and organizations in the community to assist with their clients' transportation needs. For example, the funds that are given, you're using volunteer transportation, for example, the funds that are given to the Council on Aging under the EdTap program are used already to expand their volunteer transportation network. Prior to the EdTap funding that they received, they had very little in-house funding except for perhaps fundraising, and then they also used to be a United Way agency where they got some United Way monies for that Colorado program, but those have since gone away. So this is really one of the major funding supports for that volunteer transportation program. And so it is expanding the transportation options available throughout Buncombe County. Mountain Mobility isn't the only transportation provider. We don't think that's a good idea to be the only transportation provider. There are many good options in our community. And volunteer transportation, which is, for example, what Council on Aging does through the Colorado program, as well as the Foster Grandparents program and as the Senior Companions program, reimbursing volunteers for transportation to get to work, then that is actually one of the most cost-effective means of transportation. It's probably cheaper in many respects than even getting on the bus or the operating cost of a bus or a van. If you can have a volunteer go with a person, many times that gets them through the door and provides that through-the-door assistance that transportation providers like Mountain Mobility, ART, or even taxi cab companies couldn't provide. So this program, the EdTap program, RGP and EMP, again, provides that operating assistance to provide the trips to operate the services, or to operate the services and provide the trips that Mountain Mobility serves.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion to adopt we need to adopt the recommendations for the funding, for the request for the funding. Is that?
The resolution.
Move to approve the resolution authorizing the execution of a certified statement and submission of an application for state grant funds under the fiscal year 2014 Rural Operating Assistance Program.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Newman, a second by Vice Chair Jones. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution is passed 7-0. Next, we have a rezoning request by Wade Watkins from R1 to R3. And again, we have Debbie Trumpy to talk about this. Debbie?
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Wade Watkins has applied to rezone tax lot PIN 9679900385, which is located at 80 New Salem Road. This parcel is approximately 1.3 acres, and he has requested a rezoning from R1 single-family residential to R3 residential district. The subject property is located on the west side of New Salem Road, about 1,000 feet north of its intersection with Warren Wilson Road. The property is currently wooded and undeveloped. The surrounding area is comprised of other tracts of undeveloped land and residential development, including single-family site-built homes, manufactured homes, and manufactured home parks. The adjacent property to the north contains a manufactured home site, and the adjacent property to the west contains a manufactured home park. The R3 zoning district is adjacent to this property on its west side. The Planning Department is recommending approval of the request, as the requested zoning is consistent with the Buncombe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The plan update of 2006 indicates that R3 is suitable for higher density areas and manufactured homes. Given the mix of housing types, which include manufactured homes, the adjacent and the R3 zoning district, which is adjacent to this property, the requested zoning would be consistent with the surrounding area. The Planning Board held a public hearing on this application September the 9th. The applicant's representative presented a map showing all the manufactured housing in the area and submitted a petition in support of the rezoning. There was no one made public comment. The Planning Board found that the proposed rezoning to R3 would be consistent with the land use plan, would be reasonable and in the public interest, as the area is a mix of housing types, including manufactured homes, and the R3 district is adjacent. The Planning Board recommended approval of this rezoning to R3 in a unanimous vote. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have those now.
Any questions prior to our public hearing on this? If not, I'll start the public hearing. Thank you, Ms. Trumpy. 5:07, does any member of the public wish to be heard on this rezoning request? Yes, ma'am. If you'll give your name and where you're from.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Thompson. I represent Wade Watkins. As Ms. Trumpy indicated, at the planning board meeting, we did submit a map that showed all of the manufactured homes in the area. I have a copy of that. It's blown up. If I could just briefly show that to you all.
We've got an aerial of it.
I saw you. Go ahead. In the brown areas of the mobile home park area?
This is a mobile home park. It's R3. This is also R3, but they're just individual.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
also mobile homes located all over.
And the parks are they're small parks. They're like 4 or 5.
I'm not sure.
The aerial photo that we have shows that
Yeah, 4 or 5.
that they're smaller. They're just small. They're a smaller park. Okay.
At the planning board meeting, we also submitted a petition of over 100 signatures of other property owners in the area. I also have copies of that. The originals are, of course, with the planning board. Were filed at the planning board meeting. I have copies of that if you want me to circulate those.
We'll give them after you speak. Go ahead.
I will try to keep this brief. I think the only other thing I would like to say is that I believe this rezoning would be compatible with the land use plan and its stated goal of providing affordable housing in the county. I also believe that it is compatible with the neighborhood as shown on the map that was presented. I believe that's all I have this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, thank you, Ms. Thompson. And you can submit, if you have a copy of the signatures, you can give them to Madam Clerk here, and she'll.
Just a couple of comments.
I'll tell you, let me go ahead. Let's go ahead and finish.
Okay, that's fine. Thank
Anybody
you.
else of the
Sorry.
public wish to be heard before,
Sorry.
and then we'll get. That may be a little maybe wrong time. Yes, sir, Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry Rice, I'm from Canada, but the question on the zoning part on this one, I'd like to know if the infrastructure, I haven't heard that, the infrastructure is set up to handle what might be put there in regards to the numbers that they might put there if they're going to put mobile homes or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other members of the public wish to be heard today? All right, if not, I'll declare the public hearing portion of this matter closed at 5:11. Commissioner Belcher.
Okay. I'd just like to say that anything that allows for an opportunity for more affordable housing in this county, I'm going to be for it. In this area, there are several homes that are very modest homes, and to be able to change this property to allow a little greater density is something that I would very much support. So,
Thank you. Is there any infrastructure question here?
This is a 1.3 acre lot. At this point, the applicant is just wishing to put a single home on that property. If in the future someone wanted to put more than that, part of the process of getting placement permits or a mobile home park permit would be assessment of utilities.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions about this rezoning request? If not, is there a motion to adopt or consider the rezoning request?
Make a motion.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Belcher, a second by Vice Chair Jones to adopt the rezoning request by Mr. Watkins from R1 to R3. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that you make sure that you include the statement of consistency.
I'll redo it.
I'm not sure that that's in the thing, but just need to make sure that we have that on the record, that it is or is not consistent with the land use plan.
You rephrase my motion?
Yes, if you could just,
Okay.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve from going from R1 to R3 because it's consistent and compatible with the Buncombe County land use plan.
That'll work. Thank you.
Okay, and is that a, Vice Chair, is that a acceptable amendment?
That absolutely is.
Okay, good. So we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The rezoning request is granted 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Next, we have old business. We have, last meeting we designated, we appointed two people to the Tourism and Development Authority, TDA, Mr. Chip Craig and Mr. John McKibben. We did not designate the seats that they have, and each seat has a different designation and actually has a different term on it. Is there a motion to appoint Chip Craig to the more than 100 room seat and get a 1-year term replacing Mr. Ron Morin?
So moved. Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Commissioner Frost, a second by Vice Chair Jones. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. Craig is appointed to a 1-year term at the 100 plus seat position. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. McKibben to the less than 100 room in a 2-year term, replacing Doug Bowman?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a motion by Commissioner Belcher, a second by Vice Chair Jones, to designate Mr. McKibben to that position. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. McKibben is appointed to the less 100 room 2-year term, replacing Mr. Bowman. We do not have any new business, I think we deduced earlier. So we'll go on to board appointments. We, at this point, okay, Mike's out?
Yeah.
Okay. Take just a minute. We'll wait till...
Here he comes.
He's coughing. Sure it's all right.
Okay, at our last it was our meeting in September, I believe, was it not? I guess that would have, it wasn't our last meeting, it was a couple meetings ago, we appointed the the CRA to be this board. Does that sound right? So at this point, the General Assembly has passed a ordinance, a law that basically says we create a cultural and resource authority, or cultural and recreation authority. We have appointed all members of this board to that so we could get started with paperwork and get the process going on this. We have, since that time, we have received 26 applications, and several commissioners have interest in serving on that board. At our the CRA as it existed appointed me to be chairman of that board at a meeting, and now it's time to appoint the other members of the board. We have 26 applications. I think there is some interest in some commissioners. We've had discussions about commissioner membership, and I think there were a discussion about this. So procedurally, I think the way we may want to consider this is to get a motion for resignation from all, including me, or just the six.
Well,
Six.
right now, everybody that each member is on a board, and they hold a certain certain seat with a certain term. So if it's the desire of the commissioners, you can resign from that position, and then appoint somebody to fill that place, and do that. That would probably be the cleanest way to do it.
And is there Mr. Euler, can we do a motion for everybody?
I don't know if we need to do a motion. I think that you can just pull the board and ask each commissioner if he or she resigned from the board.
Okay.
I think that will take care of it.
And do I need to resign also?
No.
That is up to each individual board member.
No,
Yes.
I mean, as far as my appointment as chairman of the board by this board.
I would think that if you resign your position from the board, you would also no longer be the.
No, I get that. I mean,
So if you don't want to,
Just
Okay.
just those of us who are do no longer wish to be on the board need to resign.
Okay.
and those that wish to stay on the board don't need to resign.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then I'll poll the board. Mr. Fryer, you want?
That was kind of not the spirit of
Yeah,
what I
that
was
was
talking
not
about.
what
but
Holly
I
brought
think
forward. She was wanting to
we'll-
do.
We can roll with it. But
Well, we I guess we have two options here, and I think that is one way to do it. Another way, Mr. Euler, would it be that we could make a motion to remove people? Would that be an alternative way to pare down to where we want,
That
so we can make
could be
room
an
for the other ones?
alternative. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can do it either way.
Okay,
What's the pleasure of the board?
Ms.
Okay.
Jones
Can I
brought forward that all 6 of us could resign and you stay.
That's right.
Then we would pick the ones from the board. I think I'm right, Ms. Jones, aren't I, on this? But all 6 would resign, nobody would stay, then we would pick back who would go back on the board.
That's one way to do it. That's one of the ways we discussed it.
I think that's what she brought forward. Am I wrong, Ms. Jones, or
no,
right?
you're right. Right.
All right. So what's the pleasure? We can do it either way. There can either be a motion or we can go poll the board.
I make the motion that we go with the recommendation Ms. Jones put forward.
All right.
Second.
Okay.
That just the 6 commissioners resign.
Right.
Okay. All right. All right. There's been a motion that the six commissioners, besides myself, resign from the board and acknowledge their resignation at this time. And then we're going to appoint. I think 2 is what has been discussed, and that will be up to the board after this round. So there's been a motion, and a second for all of us to, except for all the 6 other than the chairman, to resign as members of the CRA, subject to reappointment of several of us. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, you don't necessarily need to do a formal motion for the members of the board to resign from the CRA. I think a simple just polling of the board would be sufficient to accomplish what you're trying to do.
Okay. We have a motion on the board, so we should just poll at this point.
That would be my.
I resign.
Okay.
I resign.
I resign.
Resign.
I resign.
I want to stay on.
Okay. All right.
She said what?
Okay, we have, all right. So we have 5 resignations, and Commissioner Frost would like to stay on. Is there a motion?
And I just want to be clear that I'm also interested in being reappointed. I was kind of going with the spirit of the body to not have to like kick people off. So that was kind of my collegial thing. But as someone, as a representative of District 1, I am very interested in representing that district and those taxpayers and the municipality that is within my district. So I do not want my resignation to be seen as an indication of non-interest.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion? I would like, at this point, I think we should appoint any other commissioners that are going to be on there. Is that okay? Is there a motion for any other commissioner to be appointed to the Cultural and Recreation Authority?
Move that Joe Belcher be appointed.
Okay, Mr. Belcher has been appointed. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations at this point?
Move to nominate Holly Jones.
Okay. Holly Jones has been nominated. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right. Then we have two nominees. I guess the first thing would be the pleasure of the board. How many commissioners do we want on the board? And would it be best to, what's the best procedure here, Mr. Euler?
I would probably take you could either vote on it by seat. So let's say that right now we have 5 vacant seats, and that we look at each seat and you can appoint the person to the seat as you wish and fill those. That would probably be the simplest way to do that. So right now, let's say that we have Commissioner Belcher's seat, which is a 3-year term. You all can take a vote as to who you want to fill that seat. Then we can go to the Commissioner Jones's seat that was resigned, and then you could take a vote as to who you wish to fill that seat. Commissioner Newman, Commissioner King, and Commissioner
Not
Francis.
really. I think that would, then we just kind of get in a racing for the nomination. And I kind of think the polling is the more the spirit when we get to the 4.
That's fine too. You can poll,
so-
but I just think for just trying to.
Somewhere I've missed the whole picture. I'm sorry. It's starting to get a little bit out of hand. Now we're up to 4 commissioners.
No.
No.
No,
Well-
no.
Ellen's staying, wanting to stay, David, you, and Holly. That's, 3 is too many as far as I'm concerned. But I've never figured out who holds the 3-year seat, who holds the 2-year seat, period.
And at the last meeting when you all appointed yourselves, you all mentioned specific seats. And what I have right here,
I just mentioned we take a seat.
right, based on the minutes that I have, went over that. You have Commissioner Gant Chairman Gant has a 3-year term. Commissioner Belcher had a 3-year term, and Commissioner Frost had a 3-year term. The 2-year terms were Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Newman, and the 1-year terms were Commissioner King and
Me. Okay. Well, I
And
never
the other way
knew
we
that.
could just, if there's 6 vacancies and we all know that there's 2 things we could poll and include. I mean, the truth of the matter is I think all the candidates that we interviewed were dynamite, and I think you could almost, if it wasn't for the issue of the importance of representation of taxpayers and some of the history of the CRA, I mean, I almost think you could pull them at their names out of a hat. They were all that excellent. So the other way to do it is to kind of go down and poll and like who your 6 people that you would like on, and then we just kind of see, and then you can include, if you want to, if you don't like the idea of 3 commissioners, you don't have to put anybody else besides, or you can put 2 more. I mean, whatever you want to do, but you don't have to do 4 for sure. But then that kind of changes this up down.
Well, the dynamics, we need to get this 3, 2, whatever we have up here settled now. Then we'll go for the other 4.
Okay, I have a suggestion. And Mr. Euler, let me see if this could be a way to do it. We have 2 3-year terms, 2 2-year terms, and 2 1-year terms to appoint tonight.
actually there's one 3-year term, 2 2-year terms, and 2 1-year terms.
Okay. I would say that we just go down.
Some of that would be relative to the amount of time that you're serving, too, I guess.
I mean, I guess you could do the 2 options would be you could either do the seat by seat, or you could pick each commissioner, pick the 5 people that they want to become part of the board or to serve on the board, and then you all can decide after you've picked those 5 people who's going to serve what seat.
6 people.
6 people.
It's only
Well, no,
5.
it's only 5 because Commissioner Frost did not resign her seat. So right now.
I see.
so-
You're right. You're
So
right.
that's
I
that's
gotcha.
why I'm going with.
Yeah.
with that.
Okay.
Okay, but
I
can
think
we not fill the commissioner's seat and then fill the citizen seat?
Sure, you can do that.
I don't understand why that's a problem.
I think if you
Because
do,
I
you
think
just need to
that's-
poll the board for, 2 of the commissioners have been nominated, and you just need to poll the board and
For
choose
2
that
commissioners.
seat, if you want to approach it that way.
Okay.
That way, that'll put the second one of the commissioners on the board.
But the
Yes.
3rd one.
That makes the 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a good way? I'm comfortable if we want to poll, and it would basically be Belcher, or Jones will be the
Jones.
two that express interest.
Exactly.
And we'll poll the commission. That's what we want to do. And that would be for the 3-year term now held by Mr. Belcher, Commissioner Belcher, until his resignation. Okay? So
I support that process, Chairman Gann, and I just would like to make a comment in terms of this. I mean, I think that from my sense of the conversations amongst members over the last several weeks about this, I think there seems to be a lot of agreement that we do not want to have more than 3 commissioners on the board because it creates a majority, and it could be
Well, not have the.
That's
it
right.
could be an issue from is this really anything other than a subcommittee of the county commission? So I think there's agreement on that. I appreciate your willingness to serve as chair. If you do, and we're not going to have more than 3 commissioners, obviously, ultimately there's going to be some district on the commission that's not represented on the new board. So that is what it is. I wouldn't want District 3 to not have a representative. Obviously, I don't want District 1 to not have a representative too. Ultimately, there's probably no way to reconcile that. Part of my concern is that and we will get to this next in terms of appointing the other members, but part of my reason for I think Commissioner Belcher or Commissioner Jones would both do a great job, of course, in terms of serving on the board. Part of my concern is what the overall composition of the board looks like, and I would love to be proven wrong, but my concern is that after we're done with this vote and we appoint the citizen piece to it as well, that District 1 is going to end up being very poorly represented on this board. So I'm going to just express that concern and put that out there as we think about the overall mix of the appointees to the board. So, thank you.
Any other comments preliminarily before we vote on the third commissioner seat between Commissioner Belcher and Vice Chair Jones?
I would like to say something. We're all Buncombe County Commissioners, every single one of us, and we represent the whole county. And because others have chosen to give us district elections doesn't mean that I'm not going to represent Sandy Mush, Barnardsville, or the city of Asheville. So I want to be really clear about that. We're all Buncombe County Commissioners.
All right. Any other discussion?
I would like to just remind everybody of the process that we've arrived at. And 3 years ago, the city of Asheville made an overture to the county of Buncombe to begin conversations, and they were really positive conversations and constructive conversations and encouraging conversations about what's possible for us to come together. We know that the community is hungry for cooperation and collaboration and hands across the aisles. And so for months, this group worked, and with great respect and inclusivity, and thus the idea was born. Powers outside of us have made that the participation of a large part of our community not possible right now. And so I think in light of that very clear exclusion, I think it is really important to send a message to that group that had the vision, that invested the time, that was willing to have some hard discussions, and that they have an elected representative at this very important board for their taxpayers. So I currently serve on one other board. That is my sole responsibility that I've taken on for this. So I've got a lot of room and interest in my schedule about this. So and I would do a really good job. So. And on that board, I would also represent all the other municipalities as well as the entire county. So I would just kind of put that in the context of this bigger picture, and in this day of crazy division, to think about how can we, send a strong message of inclusion across our community.
So I've got a couple just brief comments. I want to One is we have the chairman on here, so the chairman represents all the districts, and I think in my case he's done that very well. I have been very passionate from the beginning with the cards that we were dealt, and on the CRA with children, and making sure that we're being good stewards of the county's money. It would be my intent to continue that way, to make sure that the stewardship is important, but make sure that the needs are taken care of in a way that would be visionary, and excited about it. And my colleagues up here, I respect them very, very much, and enjoy the opportunity in serving with them, and would appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner.
I think what you're witnessing is commissioners are a little bit nervous and want to make sure that every citizen is served throughout the county and that this thing works for everyone. Now, the legislature has authorized us to create this entity, and we all have concerns and we all have expectations and hopes. And if this doesn't meet the expectations and the hope of the public and serve everyone that needs to be served and should be served, then this board also has the power to pull the plug on this. And if it doesn't do that, that's still well within our power. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Any other comments? All right, so what we have is I think there's been an informal consensus that there will be 3 commissioners on the board. There are 2 on there now, so this will be for the final commissioner spot. And is it appropriate to designate this as a 3-year spot, or is that something we should do later?
That can be at the pleasure of the board if you want to designate.
I would recommend that we do this a 3-year spot. Is that by the nominations, is that acceptable to people who nominated? All right, so this will be a 3-year, and I think Commissioner Frost already had a 3-year spot, and I had a 3-year spot. So this will be the 3-year spots would be held by a commissioner from this board on the CRA board. Okay, so does everybody understand we are going to vote between Vice Chair Jones and Commissioner Belcher? Poll the commission.
You're going to poll.
Poll.
Pryor?
Belcher.
Jones.
Belcher.
Belcher.
Jones.
Jones.
All right. Commissioner Belcher is appointed. Now we have 4 remaining seats. We have 26 applicants. I would recommend that at this point, procedurally, that we vote for the 4 that you wish to be on this board, and then we go back and have a separate designation of the terms, which ones have 2 years and which ones have 1 year. Is that acceptable with the board?
So you're polling each of us for the
Poll
4.
us for the remaining 4 seats on the Cultural and Recreation Authority.
All right.
Is that agreeable with everybody?
Agreeable.
Commissioner Fryer?
Briggs, Johnson, Russell, Tessier.
Briggs, Johnson, Kern, Tessier.
Anderson, Kern, Russell, Johnson.
Briggs, Johnson, Kern, and Tessier.
Briggs, Johnson, Russell, and Tessier.
Anderson, Kern, Russell, and Johnson.
Briggs, Johnson, Kern, Tessier.
That's what I figured.
Nobody.
Cipher.
Simply math here. I've got Briggs, Johnson, Kern, and Tessier.
Got who?
Briggs, Johnson, Kern, and Tessier. Madam Clerk, is that right?
What was the count? Can you read them out and then give us a total on the votes?
I can tell you, George Briggs got 5. Well, Leslie Anderson got 2. George Briggs got 5. Eleanor Johnson got 7. Matthew Kern got 5. Bill Russell got 4. And Karen Tessier got 5.
All right. Now we need to designate the terms
District 1.
for these individuals. Is there a motion to, or you want to poll for the, let's just do it this way. We've got 2 2-year terms and 2 1-year terms, correct? Let's poll for the 2-year terms. Which ones do you want to have 2-year terms?
Is there a way to do the highest vote getter that would get the best, the longest?
We could do that. We could do
It's
that.
the easiest.
Okay. So that would be,
Do me a favor, give me a breakdown of who did what.
okay. So the highest vote getters would be,
Vote getter was Eleanor Johnson.
okay, so she would have a 2-year term.
Then
Okay.
you have George Briggs and Matthew Kern and Karen Tessier all have 5.
Okay, so that doesn't help us too much, so we still need to,
You can just poll once.
One of them helped. Do we have a 3-seat?
okay.
No.
No, we already started our 3 seats. So let's just say between Briggs, Kern, and Tessier, which one gets the 2 seats? How about that? And you pick one for the 2 seats, one out of the 3. So you'll be voting for Mr. Briggs, Mr. Kern, or Ms. Tessier to have a 2-year term versus a 1-year term. Is that reasonable? All right, so this is between, again, Briggs, Kern, and Tessier. I'll start this one.
Tessier.
Briggs.
Tessier.
Tessier.
Kern.
Tessier.
Briggs. That wasn't the Briggs part of it?
Yeah.
So Tessier would get the other 2.
So, at the end of the day, we have appointed Commissioner Gant has been appointed the chair. You have Commissioner Frost and Commissioner Belcher to serve 3-year terms. You have you have Miss Eleanor Johnson to serve a 2-year term, and Miss Tessier to serve a 2-year term. Mr. Briggs will serve a 1-year term, and Mr. Kern will serve a 1-year term. All of the individuals are subject to reappointment, though. Is that correct? And is there any term limits in the I can't remember if there's any.
Our policy is a 2-year term. This is this first appointment. All of the terms began on July the 1st of 13, and this is filling the balance of that term. So in essence, you could have 2 more reappointments.
All righty. Any questions about that? Is that okay? All right. Other openings that we are advertising at this point is the County Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy, and the Pack Place Board, 1 vacancy. Announcements: the next board meeting will be October 15, beginning at 4:30 in room 326 at 200 College Street in downtown Asheville. Commissioner meetings can be seen on BC Charter Cable Channel 2, ATT Uverse Channel 99, and live for the first time in our history tonight on BC Channel 2 and on buncombecounty.org during our meetings, and online anytime at buncombecounty.org. I think, Dr. Green, we do have, or Mr. Euler, we do have a need for a closed session. Is that right?
Yes, you need to go into closed session to discuss, and I need a motion to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-311A4.
So moved.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Frost. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we will not be taking any action when we return.
That's my understanding.
All right, then we'll be in closed session. Thank you. Don't have, man. I don't have anything to do with it. back into open session after our closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Jones, second by Commissioner King. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're now back in, that's a 7-0. We're now back into open session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Jones, second by Commissioner Fryer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.